She started using my parking spot just for a minute, so I let the lease remind her it wasn't temporary. The first time she parked there, I almost didn't notice. It was a silver SUV. Clean. Too clean for this building. Most of us who've lived here long enough drive cars that tell stories faded paint, a dent that has a history, a side mirror held together by patience and denial. But hers? That car looked like it had never lost an argument. It was sitting in my spot, not vaguely near it, not slightly over the line, centered, confident, like it belonged. I stood there for a moment longer than necessary, grocery bag cutting into my fingers, trying to decide if I had made a mistake. It happens more often than people admit. Memory shifts. Routine blurs. You question yourself first because that's what reasonable people do. Then I looked at the number painted on the curb, B12. Then at the pillar, B12. Then at the faded sticker on my own windshield, also B12. No, this wasn't confusion. This was a decision. Her name, I would later learn, was Lynn. She had moved into Unit 3C 2 weeks earlier, after the old tenant, a quiet man who watered plants at 6 a.m., left without saying goodbye. At first, she seemed pleasant. Polite nods in the hallway. A quick smile in the elevator. The kind of neighbor you categorize as easy. That category, I have learned, is often temporary. I left a note on her windshield that evening. Short, clear, civil. Hi. This spot, B12, is assigned to Unit 2A. Please park in your designated space. Thank you. No exclamation marks. No passive aggression. No invitation for debate. Just information. People reveal themselves in how they respond to clarity. The next morning, the SUV was gone. Good. I assumed that was the end of it. I was wrong. 2 days later, it happened again. Same spot. Same confidence. Different angle. This time, she had parked slightly crooked, as if to suggest temporary use. A visual shrug. I took a photo. Then another. Wider angle. Include the pillar. Include the number. Documentation first. Emotion later. If you've ever had someone slowly take something small because they assumed you wouldn't make it a big deal, comment 1. It never starts big. I knocked on her door that evening. She opened it halfway. Friendly face. Controlled smile. Yes? You parked in my spot again. She blinked, as if the sentence needed translation. Oh, just for a minute, she said. I was carrying groceries. I looked at her, then at the shoes lined neatly behind her, then back at her. For 8 hours? A pause, then a laugh. Light, dismissive. You're very precise. Yes, I said. I am. There is a certain kind of person who interprets calmness as flexibility, as negotiable, as optional. She was about to learn that calmness and flexibility are not the same thing. I'll move it next time, she said. Next time. That phrase does a lot of damage in small situations. It creates a future problem while pretending to solve the current one. No, I said. Don't park there again. Her smile tightened. It's not that serious. There it was. Minimization. The social pressure to agree that your boundary is inconvenient. I'm not treating it as serious, I said. I'm treating it as specific. She closed the door a little more. Conversation over, or so she thought. 3 days later, the SUV returned. Same spot. Perfect alignment this time. Confidence had upgraded. That's how escalation works when it goes unchecked. It gets cleaner, more certain, more permanent. I didn't knock. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I went upstairs, opened my drawer, and took out a folder. Inside were copies of my lease. Parking assignment addendum. Email confirmation from management. The map. Always keep the map. People like to imagine conflicts like this are won through confrontation. Raised voices, strong personalities, sharp words. They're not. They're won through paper. Quiet, boring, undeniable paper. The next morning, I sent an email to management. Subject line: repeated unauthorized use of assigned parking spot. B12. Attach photos. Attach lease. Attach timestamps. No adjectives. Just facts. Facts are harder to argue with when they arrive organized. By noon, I had a reply. Polita. Professional. Firm. They would address the issue. Good. Now, it was documented twice. That evening, Lynn knocked on my door. Interesting. I opened it. She stood there, arms crossed, the friendliness gone. You reported me? I documented a pattern. I said, it's just a parking spot. It's an assigned parking spot. She exhaled sharply. You could have talked to me. I did. There's a moment in these conversations where the other person realizes the story they've been telling themselves isn't going to work anymore. You can see it. A recalibration. A search for a new angle. You're making this uncomfortable, she said. No, I said. The situation is uncomfortable. I'm being clear. Silence. Then, you're very strict. I considered that, then nodded. Yes. If you're still reading, comment 1. There is nothing more unsettling to someone pushing a boundary than a person who refuses to soften it. The next morning, the SUV was gone. Again. But this time, something was different. There was a note on my windshield, handwritten. You didn't have to escalate. We could have handled this like neighbors. I read it twice, then folded it neatly, then placed it in the same folder as the lease. Not out of spite, out of habit. Documentation isn't just for now, it's for later. Weeks passed, no more incidents. Her car stayed in her assigned space. We returned to polite silence. Elevator nods, hallway distance, a quiet agreement built not on friendliness, but on clarity. Then, one rainy afternoon, I saw her again, in the parking lot, standing beside her car, looking at the lines. Really looking this time? She glanced up when she noticed me, hesitated, then said, almost reluctantly, I didn't realize it mattered that much. I walked a little closer. It didn't, I said. Until it did. She frowned slightly, trying to understand. So I gave her something simpler. It's not about the spot, I said. It's about the pattern. That landed. You could see it. Because that's the thing most people misunderstand. It's rarely about the thing itself. Not the fence post. Not the parking space. Not the seat. Not the time. It's about the slow shift. The quiet assumption. The repeated test. I got into my car, closed the door, paused for a moment, then looked at the number painted on the curb. B12. Still, mine. Exactly where it had always been. And as I drove out, I thought about how easily it could have gone differently. How many people would have let it slide? Once, then twice, then enough times that it became normal. Because that's how things are taken. Not in one bold move, but in small, reasonable moments, wrapped in politeness, justified by convenience, excused by it's not that serious. But boundaries don't disappear all at once. They fade, unless you decide they won't. And sometimes, the only difference between keeping something and losing it is whether you're willing to say, calmly and clearly, this is mine, and then keep saying it until the world adjusts.